Moving beyond the third plenum reforms now as we look into China's ongoing structural changes to its economy. With some $3.5 trillion in foreign exchange reserves, China is looking to diversify some of its investments and seize a profitable opportunity in Africa. Reports have come out in recent weeks that China will invest over $1 trillion in countries in Africa over the next 12 years. As reported in the South China Morning Post, Jiao Changhui of China's Export-Import Bank says the funds will go toward assisting countries build critical infrastructure like highways, railways, ports, and airports. This is not a new scheme for China, nor is it only laying the tracks on which it can export natural resources. Professor Stephan of SOAS in London says China has been in Africa since the beginning of its independence movement. China's economy is in the midst of a transformation with rising wages and a shrinking working-age population, forcing its industries to move up the value chain. China's leaders understand that if the country doesn't adapt its growth model, it could get stuck in what economists call the middle income trap, as other countries have at this stage of development. Africa is a big part of China's economic transition. Many countries in Africa have a young and growing population, much like China 30 years ago. As leading Sino-African scholar Deborah Brautigam says, China's activities in Africa are based on its own domestic experience of development. Brautigam says in her book, The Dragon's Gift, that China's model is attractive to many in Africa because it is a striking alternative to the aid business as usual. Among the more high-profile to take this side in the debate is Zambian-born and Oxford-trained economist Dambisa Moyo. She says China has provided a working model for states in Africa to grow out of poverty. Moyo says Africa needs investment, not aid. The West has given hundreds of billions of dollars in aid that many, like Moyo, argue has done more damage than good by creating dependency instead of creating opportunities that individuals can take advantage of by choice. Following the typical narrative, China is most certainly interested in buying raw materials, but not likely any more so than Western countries. China does not have a perfect track record in extracting those resources, but certainly no worse than companies of other nationalities, and shouldn't be judged more harshly or leniently. Abuse should be exposed so it can be corrected, and those at fault should be held accountable, but according to a single, not a double standard. Stephan says that the Chinese understand the power that aspiration holds to lift people out of poverty. China has done this for itself in the past 3+ decades and is now playing an important role in Africa, not because it is a benevolent state, but because by investing in roads, bridges, railways, telecoms, and even universities as it has at home, Africa is becoming an emerging market for Chinese goods and a source of workers as well as natural resources. By building institutions like universities, China is helping to enable Africans to their own dreams, teaching men and women to fish, as a parable once said. This is Biz Wire on the Blue Ocean Network. I'm Joseph Nordstrom in Beijing. Let's turn our attention now to a few stories that are buzzing in the market.